What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more of The Cure, as well as a briefly rousing Luca. And yes, I wanted to give a shout out once again to Phil, who has provided the main catalog, but also some compilations and live releases. And a number of folks mentioned that the Japanese Whispers compilation of non-album singles is worth going through, and I do apologize. There's been a couple times, including the last reaction, where I was still thinking about the second discs on these deluxe editions of the proper albums. But yes, our next step will be to go through Japanese Whispers, and the first track is Let's Go to Bed. So I feel like this is a perfect title set up to be something different from what it seems on the page, whereas there's a distinction between, or not whereas, but in the sense that superficially it would suggest a domestic relationship, the idea of two people going to bed, going to sleep together, and of course that can mean different things, but seemingly an end to a day shared with someone in a life that is shared similarly, and perhaps the bed specifically. But I feel like there is likely to be something more nuanced, something more complex or unexpected in this phrase somewhere along the line. I would not be surprised if there's a quirk or an underbelly to a phrase that, again, on the surface sounds like domestic bliss. So let's give it a listen. This is The Cure. The track is Let's Go to Bed, and it's one of the non-album singles included on the Japanese Whispers compilation, which I think is also 1983. Let me just make sure. Yes, 1983. Are you going to hit play? Okay, so my player just gave up. Let's try it one more time here. Sounds vaguely familiar. Bass really popping on this track. Another very cool tune. I do feel a notable brighter and lighter atmosphere relative to Pornography or Faith. Now, admittedly, it's not, bright and happy, and it's not even like Love Cats, although that is on here, and I'm looking forward to that because, again, it's one of a couple Cure tunes I knew going back many years. But it certainly feels lighter than a lot of the Pornography album, a lot of the Faith album, and it feels more overtly poppy, a bit less like post-punk, almost like indie pop relative to the earliest stuff. I will say also though, I like the combination of sonics on this one. Number one, the bass, as I said, it's a really dynamic bass line, just churning and rolling the whole time. There's those little guitar flourishes which have a brightness to them. And then there's those keyboard lines, one of which was being doubled, it sounded like, by some doo-doo, like melodic vocal imitation of the keyboard line, which is nice. And it, again, as if I was hearing that right, it was like the keyboards in conjunction with some backing or like supporting vocals at the same time doing the same melody. And yeah, lyrically, what I took from it is sort of what I expected. The idea that things aren't so simple, and in fact it feels like they've gotten really stale, and yet there's a non-committal attitude in both directions, meaning the narrator is saying like, I'm not into this if you're not, I'm not, committed to you if you're not committed to me, I don't even really want to go through with this, but they're still leaving the possibility open. They don't want to be the first one to back away or to pull out of it. So it's like, look, I'm not into this if you're not. And so it's a conditional. It's still like, if you're saying you're all in, maybe that changes my mind. If you're saying that we're still going through this game, then I guess maybe I will too. But it's also like one foot out the door at the same time, saying like, if you're pulling back, well then so am I. If you're giving up on this, well then so am I. And it seems there's time being referenced, and like maybe the other person has been involved with other people in a, romantic, sexual, or like carnal sense, because it's saying like, let's go to bed. Do you even remember the way? I'll have to tell you the way. Like, I'll tell you the direction. So it sounds like maybe the other person hasn't been there with them in this house once the connection started to fall away. So it seems like a relationship not in a good place, a relationship that's gone stale and is on the verge of collapse. And yet, as I said, the narrator seems to be like waiting for the other person to, turn the nuclear key at the same time. They're not going to initiate unless they know for sure that they're in the same boat as the other person. So, yeah, I suppose there's a vulnerability in that. There's a desire not to walk away from something if it can be salvaged, but also they don't want to be committed if the other person isn't. They don't want to be the one left holding the emotional bag, so to speak. I do enjoy the vocals. There's a couple moments where he does those extensions, not like crazy long and not like out of the melodic pocket, if you will, which again, like rhythmically, there were extensions that Smith was doing in some of the earliest stuff where it was like the track sonically would move into the next measure, but he was still extending, from the previous measure. So there was like this nice asymmetry to his voice and to what the instruments were doing. And this one, it felt less like that, but still a couple moments where he hit those extensions in his characteristic way. And yeah, so I like the sonics, I like the themes such as I caught them. It's indicative, I think, of their way of addressing concepts and relationships that in other songs from the 80s might be more straight away. And again, I listen to a lot of groups where you take a concept like love or intimacy and then they put their own spin on it, be it dark or be it more complicated. Depeche Mode, I think, is a great example, and they're a group I've been listening to for a long time. But yeah, they really do have their own way of approaching subjects where now I see a title like this and I just immediately get a sense that maybe it's not just going to be about going to bed hand in hand, smiling and going to sleep together. Maybe it's more complicated, and indeed it seemed to be. So yeah, as I said, at the very beginning there was a moment where it's like, have I heard this melody before? Have I heard this song? As the tune wore along, it felt less like that, so if I had heard a snippet of this before, it must have been just the very beginning of the tune. But I do wonder, as we get later into the 80s, and knowing that I'm familiar with a tune like Love Cats or Close to Me, I wonder whether there'll be other examples where it's like, oh, wait a minute, like I have heard this Cure tune before, but this one, despite an initial thought in that regard, I don't think is the case. Or again, if I have heard it, it was like a few seconds as part of some, radio broadcast when I was doing something else as a youth. In any case, I'm looking forward to the rest of the compilation. Again, Love Cats is on here, so no matter what else we go through in the other tunes, that one will have a bit of a nostalgic feel for me because it's one that I remember seeing the video to many years ago. Although as I sit here, I can't really recall scenes from it other than just the idea that there's some cats around and there's a bit of a claustrophobic in an apartment type of feel, if I'm recalling that correctly. So in any case, and as people will know, I will be going through Cure videos too. At this point, I've just done one for Close to Me, so my plan is to jump back in time for subsequent ones. And given the rotation of the music video reactions I'm doing, I think a Cure one will be coming soon. So those of you over on Patreon will see it first, and then hopefully, if I can, I'll put it up on here or up here on YouTube a couple weeks later. In any case, let me know what you think of this. Thank you again to Phil, and I will see you next time. Peace.